It's April 12th, and your Minnesota Twins are 7-4, and they're going for a series win over the White Sox at Target Field this afternoon. Both teams have won a 4-3 game to start the series, and now it's time for the rubber game. How good was Pablo Lopez on Tuesday night? How bad is this Chicago White Sox defense? And for that matter, how bad is this Minnesota Twins offense right now? And is there help on the way? We'll answer these questions and more in today's episode. So sit back, buckle up, and get comfortable because Locked On Twins starts now.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to another edition of Locked On Twins. And thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And of course, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and we have a very fun-looking game coming up this afternoon. We'll get to that in a little bit as the Twins go for a 2-of-3 series take from the White Sox. Before we get started, do a little housekeeping here. If you are hanging out in the comments section on YouTube, we very much appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun chatting with all of you, and we want to continue doing that and just make this a real fun community. Also, too, if you could give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Those reviews help us immensely on the business end of the podcast. So again, thank you so much for that. And if you have questions or want to engage with the show, just shoot me or Locked On Twins a message on Twitter, and we'll be happy to answer it either on or off air. But yeah, please feel like you are part of the operation here because I'm more than happy to chit-chat with you. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. So, back-to-back 4-3 games to start the series. Twins win the most recent one on Tuesday night. White Sox taking the opener on Monday. And we'll just dive right in. Dylan Cease was very good on Monday. Biggest issue for the Twins was just scratching and clawing to get within one run and not getting over the hump at the end. Reynaldo Lopez, especially out of that bullpen, absolutely incredible. But the White Sox defense was absolutely abysmal. Hanser Alberto with one play that was an error that led to a run, and then another play where he threw the ball to Tim Anderson, which got him all rumpled up under Man Mountain Matt Wallner and ended up causing him a knee injury, a sprained knee, that's going to give him 2 to 4 weeks on the injured list. So an already shorthanded White Sox team got even more shorthanded, and we'll talk about injuries here in a little bit. But again, the Twins offense did not show up in a 4-3 loss, and that has just been a little bit too often of an occurrence this season. And the Hanser Alberto giveth and Hanser Alberto taketh away. He also hit the 3-run homer off Kenta Maeda. That was a large portion of the offense for the White Sox on Monday. So Kenta, looked mostly good. Obviously, coming back from the start where he left looking like there could be another injury issue, it was certainly encouraging to hear him say it was just fatigue. And he comes out, he gives up runs in the, I'll make sure I get this right. I want to say it was the third inning. Fourth inning. So 4 runs in the fourth for Kenta and a lot of pitches. I thought for sure coming off a start where Kenta was dealing with exhaustion or, fatigue, whatever you want to call it. I thought that the 4 innings was probably going to be it for Kenta and that Cole Sands would probably have to work some bulk innings to just keep the game rolling along. Instead, Kenta comes out for the 5th and actually finishes the 5th and the 6th. Ultimately, a fairly decent start. You're monitoring velocity a little bit, off-speed stuff, breaking stuff. He had, he was closer to 2021 Kenta than he was 2020. And I think for a 5th starter, you'd be okay with that. But also, too, you compare him to what the rest of this rotation is doing, and it's hard to match up. So solid job by Kenta in general, and getting back on the horse, coming back out there to give the Twins 6 innings. Very common theme for a team that is, last I checked, first in MLB in innings pitched per game start, although it's fluctuated a little bit the last few days with Tampa Bay in that mix, and I think the Dodgers as well. So so Kenta rolled through 6 after that tough 4th inning. Reynaldo Lopez, by the way, is absolutely nasty. If you thought Liam Hendricks was nasty, and he is, or Kendall Graveman is nasty, and he is too, Lopez might be nastier than the two of them. He was touching 100 plus, all kinds of ability to spot the ball. He had a strikeout against Matt Wallner where he cut the inside corner of the plate, and Wallner backed off like he was going to get hit by it. And it was a called third strike, and it was a tremendous pitch, one of the best of the night. Keep an eye out for Reynaldo Lopez. I mean, granted, Twins fans are going to see a fair amount of him this season and probably already know about him, but I don't think we quite understood how nasty he was. Also, too, Keenan Middleton was really, really good last night. Obviously, non-roster guy, not someone that I think a lot of casual fans would expect much from. But back in his Angels days, he had some pretty nasty stuff and then battled some arm injuries. The path back is always slow when it's arm stuff. I think he was with Seattle last year and was not so bad, not so good. But yeah, he looked real good. So another guy to keep an eye on as the White Sox bullpen is in transition, both with the Jose Ruiz trade, trying to figure out who else is going to pitch. Joe Kelly's hurt, which is kind of a funny story. Maybe not ha-ha funny, especially if you're a White Sox fan, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But game 2, Twins win 4-3. Twins struck out 28 times between the first 2 games of the series. It has not been all that problematic of a thing for the Twins this offseason, all things considered. They're, I think, 9th or 10th in strikeout rate, which is not great, but it's certainly not going to be a dire situation either. And that has jumped the last 2 days. So is it an indication of how good Lance Lynn is? Is it an indication of how good Dylan Cease is? 28 strikeouts combined in games started by those 2 guys. Probably not the end of the world. Giolito, also a strikeout pitcher. He'll face the Twins today, but not not on their level, I don't think, as far as strikeouts right now, at least. I mean, either way, if Giolito is, that's 3 games against 3 strikeout pitchers. That's really not a shame to strike out a lot. This still is kind of bordering on excessive, but again, for what we can see, this is more of a blip on the radar than a trend. Granted, through 11 games, it's really hard to say. But this offense is really struggling right now. The Twins are 26th in weighted runs created plus at 84. So they are basically in a tie with the Washington Nationals, who are considered one of the favorites to pick up not the top overall pick, but the most balls whenever they do the lottery next year for the MLB draft. So the Nationals are a bad baseball team, and they're not expected to get any better. And right now they're hitting like the Twins. So we're going to have to see, what that looks like. I do have some injury updates. So maybe this offense can take a turn just by guys getting healthy or by a certain guy getting called up. Again, more on that in a second. Lance Lynn scuffled early, gave up homers to Byron Buxton and Byron Buxton's little brother, Michael A. Taylor. Jokes aside, tell me that Michael A. Taylor isn't basically the you've got Byron Buxton at home version of Byron Buxton. So both of those guys homer, and that was pretty much it for the Twins offense until the hilarious 10th inning. But before we get to that, we got to give Pablo Lopez some flowers. Struggles out of the gate. First 4 reached, and he records the next 23 straight outs. Glenn Perkins had an interesting thought because there were fewer instances of the sweeper, which is something he had thrown a lot in his first 2 starts on the road. Now, there can be a couple different ways to look at that. First of all, if you have it on the scouting report that you throw a lot of sweepers, going in another direction is going to, change things up, disrupt timing, which is what you want to do as a pitcher in the first place. But second, Perkins said he thought maybe the sweeper wasn't quite doing exactly what they wanted it to. So he, and especially Christian Vasquez, went another way with, different pitches in his repertoire. I think the sweeper is what Andrew Vaughn golfed into the left field corner to drive in the first 2 runs of the game for the White Sox. And so they kind of just made that adjustment on the fly. And I think that too speaks to the value of Christian Vasquez and a veteran catcher who, knows the game very well from behind the plate. And from there, Lopez just ripped off inning after inning after inning, striking guys out, getting weak contact. I did not, and this is going to sound interesting to people who know me well, I did not love taking Pablo Lopez out in the 8th for Caleb Thielbar. But hear me out. The analytics make sense because Benintendi is hopeless against lefties. Thielbar gets lefties out. It was the 4th time through the order for Lopez. We talk about the 3rd time penalty. This was the rarely seen 4th time through the order. The last thing you want is Benintendi hooking a sweeper over the fence into the flower pots and right and tying the game, which I guess is a harbinger of what actually ended up happening in the 9th inning. But Thielbar got the job done. He did what he does, and it worked. I think you got to let Pablo eat there. He's 98 pitches, so I get not wanting to push him further or not give up that home run to really sully what was otherwise a great outing. But that's kind of the boomer in me, because usually I'm about the data. Obviously, Thielbar facing a lefty, relievers over 4th time through the order, starters. It all points to the right decision, but I just I really would have liked Pablo to have that. And to Luis Robert wastes no time homering off Juan Duran in the 9th to tie the game. Just kind of comes back to the fact that, we talk all about how when Duran isn't in the game, people assume had he been in there, it was a guarantee that he would have shut the other team down. Not so much. But granted, Duran was still nasty. 99 or 100 with the split, fastball at 103. The rest of the guys had no chance. So he goes 2, 3, 4 and ends up going also 5 in the 9th inning, having to face 4 batters. But he still cut through the middle of a White Sox offense that has been hitting a lot better than the Twins right now, with only the blip on the radar being Luis Robert. And then the 10th inning, absolutely hilarious. So Alberto not only committed an error in the first game and then got Tim Anderson hurt, but then Michael A. Taylor bunts to get pinch runner, or I guess pinch runner technically, Willie Castro over to third. Alberto throws over it. I think it clips Taylor in the helmet, careens off into foul territory, and Willie went home, and the Twins have the win. So Alberto's back in there today at third base, much to the chagrin of White Sox fans. But I will say this before we take our quick first pause. The Twins lose both of these games for sure with last season's pitching staff. That is a primary difference between this year's Twins and last year's, is that the pitching staff kept them in this one. And there's no doubt of that in my mind. Let's talk about FanDuel again quick here as we move along in the program. You can go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more. It's the official sports book of Locked On. Don't forget that you can have a chance to get your no sweat first bet, which is up to $1,000 in bonus bets. When you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn, we got NBA play-in action going on here. We won't talk about the Timberwolves because that's not our deal, but let's just shake our heads in disgust. Lots of fun stuff that you can bet on and wager on, though, coming down the pipe here with NBA, with NHL playoffs coming up, and then, of course, MLB heating up. So all kinds of fun stuff that you can check out there. All right, let's keep it moving. We're going to go into our second segment today talking about the big news, which is that Joey Gallo has been put on the injured list with an intercostal strain. Twins do not announce a move, but their corresponding move, but it's blatantly obvious that it's going to be Edouard Julien. It's not official as of this posting, but maybe by the time you're listening, he will already be up. No lineup out yet either. The White Sox lineup is out. The Twins is not yet as we're recording. So again, we'll see if Julien is in there, but it looks as though, he was lifted from the game on Tuesday, and even the Saints on Twitter were kind of stoking the fires a little bit. Let's look at this. MLB Pipeline has Edouard Julien as the Twins' number four prospect. The top four are all offensive players: Brooks Lee, Royce Lewis, Emmanuel Rodriguez, who hit a walk-off grand slam last night for Cedar Rapids, Edouard Julien, and then Connor Prelip. Julien, they have a 60 hit tool, a 50 power tool, 40 run, 45 arm, and 40 field for an overall of 55. So I'm trying to make Maple Kadire happen with Julien. Julien, guy who can mash but has no defensive position. We'll see if it happens, but if you know me, I'm going to push this down people's throat until it either gets me yelled at or it actually sticks. So again, Maple Kadire, Edouard Julien coming up here, it looks like. I'm curious if he'll bat leadoff. Will he play second base, first base, outfield, DH? I mean, probably not DH because that's Buxton's spot, but he hasn't played any first base yet this season. He's been playing almost exclusively second base for, I almost said Rochester, St. Paul. Speaking of Rochester, Travis Blankenhorn is playing for Rochester in the national system. Just thought of that now. But anyway, Julien, bat first, can get on base. MLB Pipeline says he's proving to be a more complete hitter than he was at Auburn. Power is still there, and bat speed helps him drive the ball to all fields. So he hits the ball everywhere. He was terrific with the Saints to this point. 290 average, 421 on base, 548 slugging. 8 of 9 games at second base. He DH'd 1 game, but he has played first, second, third, and left field in the minors. A little bit of right field at Auburn. He's a top 100 prospect at MLB Pipeline and Baseball America. So it'll be curious to see how the Twins use him. It wouldn't shock me if they used him as leadoff hitter, not so much because it's about pressure and wanting to put that on him, but just they don't really have a natural leadoff hitter aside from him. He's good. 421 on base in AAA kind of shows you the deal there. But will he play first base? I'm not really sure because Donovan Solano's been playing reasonably well, better offense than defense, I would say. But if Julien hasn't played any first base yet this year, I'm not really sure what to make of that. Also, too, speaking of first base, Alex Kirilloff has started a rehab stint. He was, 1 for 3 with a single in Tuesday's loss to Clearwater. Played first base, batted third. I believe I said he batted third, but we'll see what the path is like for him. He did not have a real formal spring training experience, although he did hit a line drive off Joan Duran on the backfields. But that's going to clear up some of the playing time at first base if he can get back to good and can help this team. Carlos Correa day-to-day with the back issue. I would say probably don't expect to see him in there in the series finale with the White Sox, but hopefully back against the Yankees. But yeah, back issue that he was scratched with on Monday and has not appeared in the lineup since. Good thing it's not an ankle, I guess, is the best thing we can say about that. Rehab rolling along at Fort Myers for Jorge Polanco and Josh Winder. Polanco's 3 for 10. He's played 19 error-free innings at second base. I'm not sure how long his rehab is going to be. We've mentioned this before, but he is coming off no formal spring training time. So I don't know if it's going to be necessarily a 3, 4, 5, 6 day, 6 game, whatever rehab stint, or if they're going to stretch it out a little bit, but they can certainly use the help at second base. And the fact that Julien is coming up also makes me wonder if Polanco's close or not, how that whole second base thing will play out. But we'll see. And then I'm also curious too, Josh Winder, a couple of scoreless relief appearances, 4 strikeouts in 3 innings. Is he going to take over for Cole Sands in that kind of long man role with the big club, or will he go to St. Paul and, do his thing there? Not really sure what the answer is. I as a player specifically, I prefer Winder to Sands. Not a personal preference as far as like anything personal, just I think Winder's a better pitcher, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what's in the cards there. Let's see. We also have Tim Anderson getting hurt. So yeah, the White Sox injuries just keep rolling along. So now Tim Anderson has a sprained knee, Eloy Jimenez, Garrett Crochet, Matt Foster, Liam Hendricks, All those guys are out with various injuries. And then Joe Kelly, this is kind of humorous, strained his groin running to the brawl in Pittsburgh when catcher Sebi Zavala got taken out on a slide home by O'Neal Cruz. O'Neal Cruz ends up fracturing his ankle. He's going to miss most of the rest of the season. Just brutal. And then Joe Kelly running to join the brawl, getting injured. Somewhat humorously, easy for me to say. But I still think the Twins are more injured than the White Sox because let's just do a quick rundown. First of all, the Twins have on the 60-day IL Chris Paddock and Royce Lewis, which, two very big deals for guys who would be helping this team a lot. And then on the 10-day, you have Kirilloff, Polanco, Celestino, Gallo, Kepler, and then you have Josh Winder and Ronnie Enriquez on the 15-day IL as pitchers. To me, you've got 9 players who could be helping this big league team. I mean, Celestino and Enriquez would probably be at AAA. But either way, that's 9 guys, and 7 of which should be playing pretty big roles on this Twins team. Meanwhile, with the White Sox, I mean, Tim Anderson's one of their most important players, Eloy Jimenez as well. They've got 6 guys on the injured list, none of them on the 60-day IL. And, Crochet had his Tommy John a year ago, so he's making his way back. Really the only one that I wouldn't want any sort of comparison with is Hendricks with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and the stuff he's dealing with there. That's well above whatever the Twins are dealing with. So I think in general, though, if White Sox fans say, oh, but we're hurt, I think the Twins can pretty much go injury for injury there outside of Hendricks. Other than that, let's see here. Let's pause quickly to talk about Ultimate Baseball GM and a game that we're Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. It's a game that we are delighted to be in concert with here on Locked On. To download the game, you can just go to probaseballgm.com or look up on the app stores, whether you have an Android or an iPhone or whatever you have that has a mobile game store. Check it out. Look for Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On, which is in all caps and one word in the game store. Delightful game if you find yourself having time to fill between Twins games, as I do, putting down the baby for a nap, or just trying to get a little bit of time away from the rest of the world. This app is perfect for that. So again, I highly recommend you check it out. probaseballgm.com or look it up in your app stores. All right, so the Twins will have Sonny Gray going to the mound against Lucas Giolito this afternoon. Sonny Gray has been absolutely awesome through 2 starts, 0.75 ERA. The thing that I'm keeping an eye on, I'll pull this up here so I can actually know what I'm talking about. He's not throwing fastballs, which is interesting. I mean, Gray has never been a big velo guy, and but he's turned it way down on fastballs. So pitch type, Fangraphs is really great at tracking this sort of stuff. StatCast specifically says that Gray is only throwing forcing fastball 17.1% of the time and a cutter 11% of the time. Pitch Info says it's a slider curveball mix that he's throwing about 60% of the time, with fastballs and changeups going the rest of the way. Either way, his slider and curveball usage are as high as they've ever been. And so that's going to be something to watch. Edouard Julien's recall is official as of just now. Tweet that out. You're getting a little look behind the screen here. Edouard Julien recall is official. All right. So I didn't think we'd have that here while we were on the show, but hey, you're not watching live because I'm recording it, but Edouard Julien is now a big leaguer. Anyhow, Sonny Gray not throwing fastballs, but he's been awesome. The velo when he has thrown them has been pretty good, 92, 93, right around his career marks. With Giolito, what you're going to have to watch for is home runs. And the Twins have only hit 10 this year, so it might not be that big of a deal, but this is not the Lucas Giolito that you remember from a few years ago. He was pretty rough last year, almost a 5 ERA. Hasn't been great this year. Only 9 innings through 2 starts. He's a step down from Lynn and Cease for sure. But again, this Twins offense is still not really where it needs to be. We talked about the injuries and all that stuff. We'll see if they can make their way back. But if the Twins can get to Giolito early, especially with the long ball, I like their chances. But again, load up the bases. He's a high strikeout guy. Walks will come and go. He's just a steady, solid, like mid to upper mid rotation starter right now in his current form. And I have a hot take. Lucas Giolito is going to be a Twin next year. I think he's going to sign like a parachute 2-year deal. He's going to replace either Kenta Maeda or Sonny Gray. But I have this weird feeling, this spidey sense, like I did with Phil Hughes back in 2013 going into 2014, that I think Lucas Giolito is going to be a Twin next year. So just keep an eye on that. I did see a White Sox fan on Monday tweet, "How are the Twins good running this lineup out every day?" And it was Monday's lineup with Correa still in. It was actually before Correa was scratched. And I see the point in the sense that the lineup is a mash ward right now. It's a triage unit. But let's just look at so Roster Resource has the rankings, 2023 team rankings. I can't say enough how much I like Roster Resource, by the way. So the Twins are 26th, though, of 30 teams in average, 26th in on-base percentage, 27th in OPS, 26th in runs, 23rd in homers, and 30th in steals. Pretty bleak, right? I still like this offense, but it hasn't been there yet. But then look at this starting pitching. 2nd in ERA, 1st in WHIP, 3rd in walks per 9, 2nd in Ks per 9, 2nd in hits per 9, 8th in home runs per 9. So comfortably top 3 in 5 of the 6 categories, top 1/3 of the league in home runs per 9 innings, which we'll take. Relievers, 5th in ERA, 2nd in WHIP, 6th in walks per 9, 11th in Ks per 9, 6th in hits per 9, 16th in home runs per 9. So what I said was this pitching staff has carried them. There have been an excellent pitching staff. Edouard Julien is going to make his major league debut at second base. So second base today for Edouard Julien. Again, you probably already know this, but it's coming in as I'm recording. So boom. So yeah, obviously the Twins are good in spite of this lineup so far, rather than because of this lineup. Anyway, the Twins also, too, will hit the road. They're going to do 4 at Yankee Stadium. It's not going to be the toughest Yankees set of pitchers the Twins have ever faced. The opener is going to be Joe Ryan against Michael King, Tyler Mahle against Johnny Brito in Game 2, Kenta against Nestor Cortez in Game 3. That's going to be a fun one of 2 guys who barely break 90. And then Pablo Lopez and Domingo Germán closing it out. So the Twins will miss Garrett Cole, who beat the Guardians yesterday 11-2. Johnny Brito, though, is one guy to keep an eye on, and we'll have more about him here as the game gets closer. But he was excellent his first 2 starts, both wins. He gave up 1 earned run in 10 innings. He's looked very solid. As far as stuff, he's got big velo, good changeup. And it's one of those spots where you always see a first-time guy and you feel like he's going to trip up the offense because they haven't seen him before. So we'll see. Hopefully the Twins can avoid that. But certainly Michael King, Johnny Brito, Nestor Cortez, and Domingo Germán is not exactly the murderer's row of starting pitchers. Missing Garrett Cole, again, kind of a big deal. Before we take off here, fun little story that came across my desk at casino.org. Michaela Shaw of casino.org reached out. So they did a survey of 5,000 MLB fans and specifically asked, outside of your own team, which other baseball team has the best and worst fan bases? So some of these aren't that surprising. Everybody in the East hates either the Yankees or the Red Sox. Nobody hates the Twins for whatever reason, which is kind of funny. Everyone in the West hates the Yankees, AL West, except the Angels hate the Dodgers. And again, this is 5,000 fans, so it's a pretty good sample size. But the Milwaukee Brewers say that the best opposing fans, the best fan base, is the Minnesota Twins, which I thought was kind of cool. Some weird ones, though. The Rockies fans say Orioles, and they hate the Red Sox. The Diamondbacks say the Mariners have the best fans. The Dodgers hating the Giants and the Giants hating the Dodgers aren't that surprising, but both those teams say the Cubs have the best fans. The Padres say the Yankees have the best fans. The Cardinals say the Mariners. The Cubs say the White Sox have the best, but the White Sox say the Cubs have the worst. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. If you go to casino.org, Michaela posted this on April 4th and then shared it. So go check it out, or I'll post a link on socials. But a lot of fun as kind of a walk-off here as we get prepared for this afternoon's game. So that is a wrap for this edition of Locked On Twins. But before we go, thank you for making us your first listen every single day. But if you're looking for a second listen, I highly recommend the guys over on Locked On Fantasy Baseball. You can win your league by listening to Matt and Dom as they take you through the waiver wire, making shrewd trades, and whatever you need to do to bring home that fantasy gold. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. They are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And that's a wrap. So thank you for hanging out. Make sure you follow me at Brandon_WARNE as you see on your screen, or you don't if you're listening, but that's cool. At Locked On Min, at Locked On Twins. Subscribe, like, give us a 5-star review wherever you are listening or watching. And again, thank you for making us your first listen every single day. This is Brandon Warren signing off, saying thank you for hanging out with us. And don't forget to stop by tomorrow.